The text came in at exactly 7:47 p.m., just as I was spooning lukewarm soup into my mother's mouth at the nursing home. Going to bed early tonight, Stephen. Don't call after 8. Exhausted from parent conferences. Love you. Love you. Right. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at the message from my wife, Megan, watching the cursor blink on my phone screen like a tiny middle finger. Nothing says devoted wife like a digital curfew delivered while you're caring for your passing mother. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, actually being a decent human being, while she was apparently too exhausted for a simple goodnight call. "Who's that, honey?" Mom asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The cancer had taken most of her strength, but her eyes were still sharp as razors. "Just Megan," I said, pocketing the phone. "She's working late again." Mom's expression told me everything I needed to know. She'd never liked Megan, said she was too polished, too perfect. "That girl's got secrets written all over her face," she'd told me years ago. I should have listened. After getting Mom settled for the night, I drove home through the October rain, windshield wipers beating a steady rhythm against the darkness. Our split-level house sat at the end of Maple Street like a monument to suburban mediocrity, beige siding, and a marriage that was apparently following the same trajectory. I pulled into the driveway and noticed Megan's Honda wasn't there. Strange, considering she was supposedly tucked in bed by now. My IT instincts kicked in, the same ones that made me good at troubleshooting systems and catching inconsistencies in code. Something didn't add up. Inside, the house felt empty in that particular way that screams, "Nobody's home." I called out anyway. "Megan, you here?" Silence. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and settled into my home office, the one room in the house that was entirely mine. 3 monitors glowed to life, casting blue light across my face. Time to do what I did best, dig into data. Our cell phone plan included family GPS tracking. Megan had insisted on it years ago, claiming it was for safety. "What if one of us gets in an accident?" she'd said. "We should always know where each other are." Funny how that worked out. I pulled up the location app and searched for Megan's phone. The little blue dot appeared immediately, pulsing steadily from a location that definitely wasn't our bedroom. According to the map, she was at the Sunset Motel on Route 9, about 15 minutes from our house. The Sunset Motel. I knew the place, a rundown dump that rented rooms by the hour to people who couldn't afford better or didn't want to be seen. What the hell was my wife doing there? I took a screenshot, saved it to a new folder I created called Evidence, and leaned back in my chair. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe her car broke down and she was waiting for a tow. Maybe she was helping a friend in crisis. Maybe she was... no. I wasn't ready to go there yet. I refreshed the GPS. Still at the motel. I refreshed again 5 minutes later. Still there. By 9:30, she'd been at that location for over 2 hours. My phone buzzed with another text from Megan. "Sleeping now. See you tomorrow. XOXO." I stared at the message, then at the GPS, showing her very much not at home, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was a lie. A deliberate, calculated lie. I grabbed my jacket and keys. Time to see what my loving wife was really up to. The drive to the Sunset Motel took 12 minutes through empty streets, slick with rain. I parked across the street behind a closed gas station where I could see the motel parking lot clearly. The neon sign flickered weakly, casting pink light on the cracked asphalt below. And there it was, Megan's silver Honda Civic, parked outside room 14. But she wasn't alone. Parked right next to her car was a black Ford F-150 that I recognized immediately. It belonged to Eric Dawes, the gym teacher at Megan's school. The same Eric who'd been to our house for barbecues, who'd shaken my hand and called me buddy while drinking my beer and eating my food. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching their vehicles, feeling my world tilt sideways. Rain drummed on the roof while my marriage dissolved in real time. Finally, I drove home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Back in my office, I opened a new document and started typing everything I could remember. Times, locations, screenshots. If this was going where I thought it was going, I'd need evidence. Lots of it. At 11:43 p.m., the GPS showed Megan's phone moving. She was heading home. I quickly shut down my computer and went to bed, pretending to be asleep when I heard her key in the lock 20 minutes later. She slipped into bed beside me, smelling like cheap motel soap and betrayal. "How was your evening?" she whispered. "Quiet," I said. "How were the parent conferences?" "Exhausting, but productive." I'll bet they were. The next morning, Megan was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Early staff meeting, coffee's made, love you, love you. There it was again, that phrase that was starting to sound more like a lie every time I heard it. I called in sick to work, something I never did, and spent the morning setting up surveillance systems that would make the NSA proud. Being an IT specialist had its advantages. I cloned Megan's phone remotely, giving me access to all her texts and calls. I installed tracking software that would log every location she visited. I even hacked into our home router to monitor her internet activity. By noon, I had a complete digital dragnet in place. Now I just had to wait for her to walk into it. I didn't have to wait long. The first intercepted text came at 1:23 p.m. from Eric to Megan. Can't stop thinking about last night. You drive me crazy. Her response, 5 minutes later. Same here. Steven's visiting his mom tonight. We could meet earlier. My hands clenched into fists as I read their messages. They weren't even trying to be subtle about it. Eric, your husband suspects anything? Megan, Steven, please? He's completely clueless. Too busy with his computers and his sick mommy to notice what's right in front of him. That one hit like a punch to the gut. Not just the affair, but the casual cruelty in how she talked about my mother. Mom was passing, and this was how my wife of 8 years chose to describe my devotion to her care. I saved every message, every screenshot, building a digital dossier of their betrayal. By 3 p.m., I had enough evidence to prove adultery in divorce court. But I wasn't ready to play that card yet. I wanted to know everything first. That evening, I told Megan I was going to see Mom, which was true, but I also drove past the Sunset Motel on my way there. Sure enough, both cars were in the parking lot again, same room as before. At the nursing home, I sat with Mom and tried to act normal while my world crumbled. She could tell something was wrong. You look like hell, Steven, she said, reaching for my hand with fingers that felt like paper. What's eating at you? I almost told her everything right then. Mom had always been my closest confidant, the one person who never judged me or lied to me. But she was fighting cancer, and I couldn't burden her with this. Just work stress, I said. She squeezed my hand weakly. That wife of yours treating you right? The question hung in the air between us. Mom's intuition had always been scary accurate. We're fine, I lied. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. You know, Steven, sometimes people show you who they really are. When they do, believe them. I stayed until visiting hours ended, then drove to the last stop, a blue-collar bar downtown where I sometimes went to decompress after particularly brutal days at work. The owner, Kat Malone, was a tough-talking woman in her 40s who'd seen every kind of human drama play out in her establishment. You look like someone pissed in your cornflakes, she said, sliding a beer across the bar without being asked. Something like that, I muttered. Kat studied my face with the practiced eye of someone who'd been serving drinks to troubled people for 20 years. Wife problems? I nearly choked on my beer. What makes you say that? Honey, I've seen that look 1,000 times. It's the same expression every man gets when he realizes his woman's been playing hide the sausage with someone else. Her bluntness was like a slap. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Kat leaned on the bar, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Look, I ain't one to gossip, but I saw your wife here last week with some guy. Tall, dark hair, looked like he spent too much time at the gym. They were all over each other in that corner booth. She pointed to a dimly lit section of the bar where couples went when they wanted privacy. They weren't exactly subtle about it, Kat continued. Hell, I was embarrassed for you, and you weren't even here. My face burned with humiliation. Not only was Megan cheating, but she was doing it publicly in places where people knew me. How many others had seen them together? How many people were laughing behind my back? Thanks for telling me, I managed. Look, Steven, you seem like a decent guy. You deserve better than whatever game she's playing. I finished my beer and drove home, my mind spinning with rage and humiliation. Megan was already in bed when I got there, pretending to be asleep. I lay awake next to her until dawn, planning my next move. The intercepted texts the next day were even more explicit. Eric sent photos, nothing pornographic, but intimate enough to make their relationship crystal clear. Pictures of them together at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels I'd never seen. Megan responded with messages that made my stomach turn. Steven's so boring in bed, one read. You make me feel alive again. Another. He's getting suspicious about my late nights. We need to be more careful. Eric's response. Maybe it's time you left him. We could be together for real. Megan. Soon. I need to figure out the finances first. He makes good money, and I don't want to lose half of everything. There it was. She wasn't just cheating, she was planning to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. She wanted to destroy my life and get paid for it. But two could play that game. I spent the next 3 days gathering more evidence and making preparations. I contacted Miles Green, a private investigator who'd done some work for my company in the past. Miles was an ex-cop with a reputation for thoroughness and discretion. I need documentation of an affair, I told him over coffee at a diner downtown. Miles was a thin man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. He listened without judgment as I laid out the situation. How long has this been going on? He asked. I'm not sure. I only discovered it 3 days ago, but based on their texts, it's been months, maybe longer. And you want what exactly? Photos for divorce proceedings? I want everything, I said. Photos, video, witnesses, financial records, the whole package. I want to make sure that when this goes to court, there's no question about who the innocent party is. Miles nodded slowly. That's going to cost you. I don't care what it costs. Okay, give me a week. That night, Megan announced she was going to another staff meeting. I wished her luck and said I'd probably be asleep when she got home. She kissed my cheek, and told me she loved me. The GPS showed her at the Sunset Motel by 7:30 p.m. This time, I didn't go there myself. Instead, I called Miles. They're at the motel now, I told him. Room 14? How did you know that? Because I've been watching them for 2 days. Your wife's not exactly a master of espionage, Stephen. She uses the same room every time, parks in the same spot, follows the same routine. I've got enough photos to wallpaper your house. What about Eric? What's his story? Eric Dawes, 36, married to Linda Dawes for 12 years. 2 kids, ages 8 and 10. Works at Jefferson High School, same as your wife. Clean record, no previous affairs that I can find. This might be his first time stepping out. His wife doesn't know? Not yet, but she will if you want her to. I thought about that. Linda Dawes was an innocent victim in all this, just like me. She deserved to know what her husband was doing, but I wasn't ready to detonate that bomb yet. I wanted to control the timing of every revelation. Not yet, I said, but soon. The next morning, Megan was unusually affectionate. She made me breakfast, told me how much she appreciated everything I did for the family, even suggested we plan a weekend getaway. We haven't been spending enough time together, she said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. I feel like we're drifting apart. The sheer audacity of it took my breath away. She was literally screwing another man while telling me we needed to reconnect. The woman I'd married, the person I'd trusted with my heart and my future, was a complete stranger. That sounds great, I said, forcing a smile. Where did you have in mind? Maybe that bed and breakfast in Vermont we went to for our anniversary? The one with the fireplace in the room? The same anniversary trip where she'd been texting Eric the entire time, I realized. I'd thought she was being antisocial, checking work emails constantly. Now I knew better. Perfect, I said. I'll look into availability. She beamed at me, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago. Then I remembered the texts, the photos, the casual cruelty in how she talked about me to her lover, and the moment passed. That afternoon, Miles called with an update. I've got video now, he said. High definition, multiple angles, timestamps that correspond with her lies about where she was. Plus, I followed up on their pattern. They've been meeting at that motel twice a week for at least 6 months. The desk clerk remembers them. 6 months, I repeated. Half a year of lies, half a year of her coming home to me after being with him. There's more. I did some digging into their communications. They've been planning this divorce strategy for weeks. She's already consulted with a lawyer. Rebecca Martinez specializes in high-asset divorces. Your wife's been very thorough. My hands tightened on the phone. What kind of strategy? The usual. Paint you as an absent workaholic husband who neglected her emotional needs. Make the affair seem like a symptom of your failures rather than her choice. She's building a narrative that makes her the victim. Can she win with that approach? In a no-fault state like this one? She doesn't need to win, Stephen. She just needs to muddy the waters enough to get her 50%. And based on what I'm seeing, she's got a good shot at it. Not if I had anything to say about it. The weekend arrived with Megan announcing another girls' night out with her friend Sherry Lindell. I'd always disliked Sherry. She was one of those women who thrived on drama and gossip, the type who would encourage bad decisions just to have something interesting to talk about. We're going to that new wine bar downtown, Megan said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. She was dressed to impress in a black dress I'd bought her for Christmas. Don't wait up. Have fun, I said, not looking up from my laptop. The GPS showed her heading toward downtown, but she made a detour that took her straight to the Sunset Motel. Sherry, apparently, was just another lie in the growing collection. I spent the evening in my office preparing for war. First, I transferred most of our joint savings into a personal account I'd opened at a different bank. Not all of it, that would be too obvious, but enough to ensure I had operating capital for what was coming. I canceled Megan's credit cards, claiming suspected fraud when the bank called to confirm. I changed passwords on all our shared accounts and removed her access to our investment portfolio. Then I started working on the nuclear option. Jefferson High School had a strict morality clause in their employee contracts. Teachers who engaged in behavior that reflected poorly on the school could be terminated immediately. Adultery with a colleague definitely qualified, especially when it involved meeting at seedy motels during school hours. I crafted an anonymous email to Principal Robert Linton, attaching selected photos and text messages that Miles had gathered. Nothing pornographic. I wasn't trying to create a scandal, just provide evidence of unprofessional conduct. I scheduled the email to send Monday morning at 8 a.m., right when Linton would be checking his messages before the school day started. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. Wine bar is closed, going to Sherry's to watch movies, home late. The GPS showed her still at the motel. I poured myself a scotch and settled in to wait. Around midnight, I heard her car in the driveway. She slipped into bed beside me, reeking of cheap cologne that definitely wasn't hers. How was girls' night? I asked in the darkness. Fun, she whispered. Sherry says hi. Tell her I said hi back? I will. Another lie stacked on top of all the others. I wondered if she even remembered what the truth looked like anymore. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. Megan left for work at her usual time, kissing me goodbye and telling me to have a good day. I waited until 8:30, then called the school. Jefferson High School, this is Patricia. Hi, this is Stephen Brooks. I'm trying to reach my wife, Megan Brooks. She's a teacher there. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks. Mrs. Brooks was called into a meeting with Principal Linton this morning. She's not available right now. A meeting? Is everything okay? I'm not really supposed to discuss personnel matters, but, well, she looked pretty upset when she went into his office. I thanked Patricia and hung up, a grim smile spreading across my face. The dominoes were starting to fall. My phone rang an hour later. Megan's number. Stephen? Her voice was shaky, tears evident. Something terrible has happened. What's wrong? Someone sent photos to Principal Linton. Photos of me and someone. I don't know how they got them or who would do this, but I've been suspended pending an investigation. Photos of you and someone? What kind of photos? Stephen, I need to tell you something. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. What kind of mistake? I've been seeing someone. It was stupid and meaningless, but someone found out and now they're trying to destroy my career. Even now, caught red-handed, she was trying to control the narrative. A meaningless mistake, not a 6-month affair. Someone was trying to destroy her, not hold her accountable for her choices. Who? I asked, though I already knew. Eric Dawes, the gym teacher. It only happened a few times, Stephen. I swear it didn't mean anything. A few times? Maybe more than a few, but it's over now. It's been over for weeks. Another lie. They'd been at the motel just 3 nights ago. I'm coming home, she said. We need to talk. Yes, I agreed. We do. I spent the next hour preparing for her arrival. I printed out selected text messages and photos, arranged them in chronological order, and placed them in a folder on the kitchen table. Then I changed the locks. When Megan arrived, she couldn't get her key to work. I watched through the window as she tried multiple times, growing increasingly frustrated. Finally, she rang the doorbell. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. What's wrong with my key? She asked. I changed the locks. You what? Stephen, this is my house too. You can't lock me out. Actually, I can. The house is in my name only, remember? You insisted on that when we bought it for tax reasons. Her face went pale as she realized the implications. Stephen, please, let me in so we can talk about this. We can talk right here. The neighbors will see. Let them see. I handed her the folder. Before you say anything else, you should know that I have evidence of your affair going back 6 months. Photos, text messages, GPS records, hotel receipts, all of it. She opened the folder and her face crumpled as she saw the contents. How did you get these? Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do now? Stephen, please. I know I messed up, but we can work through this. I love you. No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love the house and the lifestyle and the respectability. But you don't love me. That's not true. Really? Because according to your text messages, I'm boring in bed and completely clueless. You were planning to divorce me and take half of everything while continuing to screw Eric on the side. She started crying then, big dramatic sobs that might have moved me a month ago. Now they just made me angry. I packed your things, I said, gesturing to 3 suitcases sitting on the porch. You can stay at Sherry's or with Eric or wherever you want, but you're not staying here. You can't do this. I have rights. Actually, I can. Adultery is grounds for immediate separation in this state, especially when there's clear evidence. My lawyer explained it to me this morning. Your lawyer? Did you think I'd go into this unprepared? I'm not as clueless as you thought. Neighbors were starting to come outside, drawn by Megan's increasingly loud sobs. Mrs. Henderson from next door was openly staring, her phone in her hand like she was recording everything. Please, Megan begged, don't do this, not like this. You did this, not me. You made the choice to betray our marriage. You made the choice to lie to my face every single day. You made the choice to mock me to your lover. I'm just dealing with the consequences of your choices. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? What about the 6 months you spent screwing another man? What about the divorce you were planning? What about calling my passing mother a burden? She flinched at that last one. I never said that. I pulled out my phone and played one of the recorded conversations Miles had captured. Her voice came through clearly. Stephen's so pathetic, always running to Mommy's bedside. She's been passing for 2 years. Just die already so I can have my husband back. The blood drained from her face. You recorded me? I documented everything, just like you documented your divorce strategy with Rebecca Martinez. Her eyes widened in shock. She hadn't expected me to know about the lawyer. Stephen, I'm begging you, don't destroy our marriage over this. I'm not destroying anything. You already did that. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. I stepped back inside and started to close the door. Where am I supposed to go? She called out. I really don't care, I said, but I suggest you figure it out quickly. It's going to rain. I closed the door and locked it, leaving her on the porch with her suitcases and her tears. Through the window, I watched her call someone, probably Eric or Sherry, begging for a place to stay. My phone started ringing immediately. First Sherry, then Eric, then several numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The first message was from Sherry. Stephen, what the hell is wrong with you? Megan's hysterical. You can't just throw her out like this. The second was from Eric. Look, man, I know you're upset, but this isn't the way to handle things. We need to talk like adults. I deleted both messages without listening to the rest. That evening, I drove to the nursing home to visit Mom. She took one look at my face and knew something had changed. You look different, she said. Lighter somehow. Megan and I are separating. Mom nodded slowly, like she'd been expecting this news for years. What happened? I told her everything. The affair, the lies, the planned divorce, even the cruel things Megan had said about her. Mom listened without interruption, her thin fingers gripping mine with surprising strength. I'm sorry you had to go through this, she said finally. But I'm not sorry it's over. That woman never deserved you. I loved her, Mom. I know you did. But love isn't enough when the other person doesn't love you back. And honey, that woman never loved you. She loved what you could give her. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set through her window. What happens now? She asked. Now I make sure she can't hurt anyone else the way she hurt me. Mom squeezed my hand. Just don't let revenge consume you, Stephen. Now don't become someone you can't live with. I won't, I promised. But even as I said it, I could feel the anger burning in my chest, demanding satisfaction. The war was just beginning. Tuesday morning brought a call from Miles Green with news that made my coffee taste even better. Eric's been suspended too, he reported. Apparently your wife tried to throw him under the bus, claiming he pursued her and she was too intimidated to say no. Unfortunately for her, those text messages you gave the principal tell a different story. What's his situation at home? That's where it gets interesting. His wife Linda found out yesterday when the school called her. Seems Eric had listed her as his emergency contact, and when he got suspended, they had to notify her why. She kicked him out last night. I felt a grim satisfaction at that news. Eric was learning the same lesson I'd learned. Actions have consequences. So, they're both homeless now? Not exactly. Your wife's staying with that friend of hers, Sherry. Eric's camping out at his brother's place across town. But here's the kicker. Linda's already filed for divorce, and she's asking for full custody of the kids. Good for her. There's more. I did some digging into Eric's background. This isn't his first affair. He had a thing with another teacher 3 years ago, but it was hushed up. The woman transferred to another school rather than make waves. So he's a serial cheater? Looks like it. And now that this is public, I'm betting other victims might come forward. That afternoon, I decided to pay a visit to the last stop. I needed to get out of the house and away from the constant phone calls from Megan and her supporters. Kat greeted me with a knowing smile. Well, well, look who's back. You look better than you did last week. I feel better. I heard through the grapevine that you kicked your cheating wife to the curb. Good for you. Word traveled fast in a small town. News travels fast. Honey, half the town knew about her affair before you did. The other half were just waiting to see how long it would take you to figure it out. That stung, but I pushed down the embarrassment. Well, now everyone knows I'm not as stupid as they thought. Nobody thought you were stupid, Stephen. Just trusting. There's a difference. I ordered a beer and settled in at the bar, enjoying the first peaceful moment I'd had in days. That peace was shattered when Eric Dawes walked through the door. He looked terrible. Unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion. He spotted me immediately and headed over with the determined stride of a man who'd been working up courage all day. Stephen, he said, sliding onto the bar stool next to mine. We need to talk. Do we? Look, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but destroying both our careers isn't going to solve anything. I turned to face him fully. Destroying your careers? You did that yourselves when you decided to start screwing in cheap motels? It wasn't supposed to happen. It just developed. For 6 months? He looked surprised that I knew the timeline. How did you? I know everything, Eric. Every text, every meeting, every lie you both told. I know about the divorce strategy, the lawyer consultations, the way you both laughed about how clueless I was. His face flushed red. We never laughed about you. I pulled out my phone and played one of the audio recordings Miles had captured. Eric's voice came through clearly. Your husband's such a pushover. I bet he wouldn't even fight back if he found out about us. The color drained from his face. You recorded us? I documented everything, just like you should have documented your marriage vows. Stephen, please. I've lost everything. My job, my wife, my kids. Linda won't even let me see them. And whose fault is that? I know it's mine. I know I screwed up. But Megan's telling everyone that you're trying to destroy us both out of spite. Spite? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Eric, Spite would be posting those photos on social media. And Spite would be sending copies to your parents and hers. Spite would be making sure every teacher in the district knows exactly what kind of man you are. His eyes widened in alarm. You wouldn't... I don't need to. The truth has a way of spreading all by itself. Look, what do you want? Money? I don't have much, but... I don't want your money, Eric. I want you to understand something. You didn't just have an affair with my wife. You helped her plan to destroy my life. You encouraged her to see me as an obstacle to be removed. You made me a joke in my own marriage. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, and now you're facing the consequences. Eric's face hardened. You know what? Fine. You want to play hardball? I can play hardball too. Megan told me about your little surveillance operation. What you did was probably illegal. Hacking her phone, recording private conversations. That's stalking, Stephen. I smiled at that. Actually, it's not. Everything I did was perfectly legal. The phone is on my account, so I have every right to monitor it. The GPS tracking was part of our family plan that she agreed to, and the recordings were made in public places where there's no expectation of privacy. You son of a bitch. Careful, Eric. You're in a public place right now, and I'm still recording. He stood up abruptly, his fists clenched. For a moment, I thought he might actually swing at me. Then he seemed to remember where we were and who was watching. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. He stormed out of the bar, leaving me alone with Kat, who'd been watching the entire exchange with obvious amusement. That was beautiful, she said. I haven't seen someone get taken down that smoothly since my ex-husband tried to blame me for his gambling problem. He's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. Speaking of stupid things, your wife's been calling here looking for you. I told her you weren't here, but she didn't believe me. She might show up. As if summoned by our conversation, the door opened and Megan walked in. She'd clearly been crying. Her makeup was smeared and her hair was disheveled. She looked around the bar until she spotted me, then marched over with the righteous anger of someone who believed she was the victim in all this. Stephen, we need to talk. Now. We talked yesterday, on the porch, in front of the neighbors. That wasn't talking. That was you humiliating me in public. I didn't humiliate you, Megan. You humiliated yourself. I just stopped pretending it wasn't happening. She glanced around the bar, noting the other patrons who were obviously listening to our conversation. Can we please go somewhere private? No. Anything you have to say to me, you can say right here. Fine. She took a deep breath, composing herself. I want to come home. That's not happening. Stephen, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake, but it's over now. Eric and I are done. We can work through this if you'll just give me a chance. Work through this? Megan, you spent 6 months planning to divorce me while screwing another man. You called my passing mother a burden. You mocked our marriage to your lover. What exactly do you think we're going to work through? I was confused. I was going through something, and I made bad choices. But I love you, Stephen. I've always loved you. No, you love the life I provided. You love the house and the financial security and the respectability, but you don't love me. That's not true. Really? When was the last time you asked about my day? When was the last time you showed any interest in my work, my hobbies, my thoughts about anything? When was the last time you touched me without it being perfunctory? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. We both knew the truth. I can change, she said finally. I can be better. You had 8 years to be better, Megan. You chose to be worse. So that's it? You're just going to throw away 8 years of marriage? I didn't throw it away. You did. Every time you met him at that motel, every time you lied to my face, every time you came home to me after being with him, you threw it away piece by piece. Tears started flowing again, but this time they looked genuine. I'm sorry, Stephen. I'm so sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry you lost your job. You're sorry your comfortable life got disrupted, but you're not sorry you hurt me. I am sorry I hurt you. No, you're not. Because if you were really sorry about hurting me, you would have stopped long before it got to this point. You would have ended the affair instead of planning to end our marriage. She looked around the bar desperately, as if searching for allies. Everyone makes mistakes, Stephen. Everyone deserves a second chance. Some mistakes are too big for second chances. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. What about forgiveness? What about compassion? What about loyalty? What about honesty? What about the vows you made to me in front of our families and friends? She had no answer for that. I want you to leave now, I said quietly. Don't call me, don't come to the house, don't contact me at work. If you need to communicate with me, do it through lawyers. Stephen, please, leave, now, before I decide to share some of those photos with everyone in this bar. She looked at me with something that might have been hatred, then turned and walked out without another word. Kat whistled low. Damn, Stephen, that woman really did a number on you, didn't she? Yeah, but it's over now. Is it? Because something tells me she's not going to give up that easily. I finished my beer and left cash on the bar. Then she's going to learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter than I had in months. The confrontation with Eric and Megan had been cathartic, but it was just the beginning. They'd both made it clear they thought they could manipulate me, threaten me, or guilt me into backing down. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next few days brought a parade of phone calls from mutual friends, all wanting to hear my side of the story. Most were genuinely supportive once they learned the truth, but a few seemed disappointed that the drama wasn't more ambiguous. People loved a good scandal, but they preferred it when both sides shared the blame. Sherry Lindell was not among the supportive friends. She showed up at my office on Thursday afternoon, somehow talking her way past building security. I was deep in code when my cubicle neighbor, Dave, tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, Stephen, there's a woman here to see you, says she's a friend of your wife's. I looked up to see Sherry standing behind Dave, her arms crossed and her face set in lines of righteous anger. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she carried herself like someone who'd never backed down from a fight. Sherry, I said, not getting up from my chair, what brings you to my workplace? We need to talk. About what? About what you're doing to Megan. I glanced around the office, noting that several of my coworkers were pretending to work while obviously listening to our conversation. This isn't really the place for personal discussions. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to destroy an innocent woman's life. Innocent? I couldn't help but laugh. Sherry, your friend spent 6 months having an affair. She's many things, but innocent isn't one of them. She made a mistake. One mistake, and you're using it to ruin everything she's worked for. One mistake that lasted 6 months and involved planning to divorce me while continuing to live in my house and spend my money. Sherry's face flushed red. You don't understand what she was going through. You were never there for her. Always working, always at your mother's bedside, never paying attention to your wife's needs. So it's my fault she cheated? I'm saying there were problems in your marriage that you're conveniently ignoring. I stood up then, my patience finally exhausted. Sherry, let me explain something to you. If Megan was unhappy in our marriage, she had options. She could have talked to me about it. She could have suggested counseling. She could have asked for a separation. What she couldn't do was decide to solve her problems by screwing another man while lying to my face every single day. She was afraid to confront you. You can be very intimidating when you're angry. Intimidating? When have I ever been intimidating to Megan? When have I ever raised my voice to her, let alone my hand? Sherry hesitated, and I realized she was making it up as she went along. She said, "You have a temper?" Really? Ask anyone who knows me. Ask my coworkers, ask my neighbors, ask the people at the bar where I drink, ask them if Stephen Brooks has a temper. Dave, who'd been listening to the whole conversation, spoke up. Stephen's the most even-tempered guy I know. Never seen him lose his cool about anything. Sherry glared at Dave, then turned back to me. Look, I don't care about your marriage problems. What I care about is that Megan is sleeping on my couch, crying herself to sleep every night, because you've destroyed her entire life over one mistake. Her entire life? Sherry, she's a talented teacher. She can get another job at another school. She's young and attractive. She can find another man to support her. What she can't do is undo the damage she did to our marriage. She loves you, Stephen. She's always loved you. No, she doesn't. And deep down, you know that. You were there when she was planning the divorce. You were there when she was mocking me to Eric. You probably encouraged her to have the affair in the first place. Sherry's face went pale. That's not true. Isn't it? You've been divorced twice, Sherry. You hate seeing other people happy in their marriages because it reminds you of your own failures. You bastard. There's the real Sherry. See, this isn't about defending your friend. This is about you being angry that your entertainment is over. You loved the drama of Megan's affair. You loved having secrets to keep and lies to help cover up. Now that it's all out in the open, you don't have anything interesting going on in your life. You're sick, you know that? Sick and vindictive and cruel. I'm honest. That's something you and Megan wouldn't recognize if it bit you on the ass. Sherry looked around the office, realizing that everyone was staring at her. This isn't over, Stephen. Megan's going to fight you on the divorce. She's going to take you for everything you're worth. She's welcome to try, but she should know that I have evidence of her affair going back 6 months, plus recordings of her planning to commit fraud during the divorce proceedings. Any lawyer worth their fee will tell her to take whatever settlement I offer and be grateful for it. Sherry opened her mouth to respond, then seemed to think better of it. She turned and walked toward the elevator, her heels clicking angrily on the tile floor. Dave whistled low. Damn, Stephen, your wife's friends are almost as bad as your wife. Birds of a feather, I said, settling back into my chair. But Sherry's visit had planted a seed of worry in my mind. If Megan was planning to fight the divorce, she might try to paint me as an abusive husband or claim that I'd driven her to the affair through neglect. I needed to be prepared for whatever lies she might tell. That evening, I called Miles Green. I need you to do some more digging, I told him. I think Megan's going to try to flip the script, make herself look like the victim. What kind of digging? Everything. Her finances, her communications, her relationships. If she's planning to lie about our marriage, I want to be able to prove she's lying. That's going to take time and money. I don't care about either. Just get me everything. Miles called back 3 days later with news that made my blood run cold. Stephen, we've got a problem. Megan's been talking to people, spreading stories about your marriage. She's claiming you were emotionally abusive, that you controlled her finances and isolated her from her friends. That's complete bullshit. I know that, and you know that, but she's got people believing her. Worse, she's claiming that you hacked her phone and stalked her, that you're obsessed with destroying her life. Everything I did was legal. Legal, yes, but it doesn't look good. A grieving man whose mother is passing, spending his time setting up surveillance on his wife. She's painting a picture of someone who's unhinged. I felt a chill run down my spine. What else? She's also claiming that the affair was emotional, not physical. Says she and Eric never actually had an affair, that they were just friends who got too close. That's a lie. You have photos of them going into motel rooms. I have photos of them going into the same room. I don't have photos of them actually having an affair, and without that, it's her word against the circumstantial evidence. What about the text messages? She's claiming those were taken out of context, that Eric was pursuing her, and she was trying to let him down easy. I sat in stunned silence, realizing that Megan was better at this game than I'd given her credit for. She was systematically dismantling my case while building her own narrative of victimhood. There's more, Miles continued. She's filed a restraining order against you, claiming you've been harassing her and threatening her. I haven't threatened her. She's claiming that conversation at the bar was threatening, that you implied you'd release intimate photos of her if she didn't stay away from you. I never said that. Do you have any witnesses who can back that up? I thought about the bar conversation. There had been other people there, but would they remember exactly what was said? Would they be willing to testify on my behalf? Maybe. I'm not sure. Stephen, you need to be very careful here. Megan's building a case that you're an obsessive, controlling husband who drove her away and is now stalking her. If she can make that stick, she'll not only win the divorce settlement, she might be able to press criminal charges against you. The room seemed to spin around me. How had this happened? How had I gone from being the wronged party to being painted as the villain? What do I do? First, you stop all contact with her. Don't call, don't text, don't go anywhere she might be. Second, you document everything, every conversation, every interaction, every lie she tells. And third, you get yourself a very good lawyer, because this is about to get ugly. I hung up the phone and stared at the wall of my office, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Megan wasn't just fighting back. She was trying to destroy me the same way I'd tried to destroy her. The difference was, her weapons were lies, and mine had been the truth. But in a world where perception mattered more than reality, I was beginning to wonder if the truth would be enough. The restraining order arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a sheriff's deputy who looked embarrassed to be serving it. The document was a masterpiece of creative writing, painting me as an obsessive stalker who had threatened my estranged wife and her friend Eric Dawes. According to Megan's sworn statement, I had illegally surveilled her using sophisticated hacking techniques, threatened to distribute intimate images of her, harassed her at her workplace and in public venues, made threatening phone calls and sent intimidating text messages, engaged in a pattern of behavior designed to terrorize and control her. Every single allegation was either a complete lie or a twisted version of the truth, but it was all there in black and white, signed by a judge who had only heard her side of the story. I called the lawyer Miles had recommended, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Vance who specialized in high-conflict divorces. "This is actually good news," she said after reviewing the restraining order. "How is this good news?" "Because your wife just committed perjury in a sworn statement. Everything she's claimed here can be disproven with the evidence you've gathered. When we show the judge that she's lying under oath, her credibility will be destroyed." "What about the criminal implications? Can she really have me arrested?" "Not based on what's in this document. But Stephen, I need you to understand something. Your wife is playing a very dangerous game here. She's betting that you'll back down rather than fight, that you'll agree to a generous settlement to make this all go away. That's not happening." "Good. Because if we can prove she's lying about this, we can probably prove she's lying about everything else." Patricia was right about Megan's strategy, but she was wrong about one thing. Megan wasn't planning to wait for me to back down. She was planning to escalate. The first sign came that Friday when I arrived at work to find 2 police officers waiting in the lobby. They were polite but firm. Someone had reported that I was violating the restraining order by sending threatening emails. "I haven't sent any emails," I told them. "Well, someone using your email address has been sending some pretty nasty messages to a Megan Brooks," the older officer said. "Messages that violate the terms of your restraining order." They showed me printouts of emails that had supposedly come from my account. The messages were crude and threatening, exactly the kind of thing that would make me look like an unhinged stalker. The problem was, I hadn't sent them. "Someone's spoofing my email address," I explained. "It's not that hard to do if you know how." "Can you prove that?" "Give me access to my email server logs, and I can prove it in 10 minutes. It took an hour, but I was able to demonstrate that the emails had been sent from an IP address that wasn't mine, using a technique called email spoofing that anyone with basic computer knowledge could accomplish. The officers seemed satisfied, but they warned me that any further violations would result in my arrest. After they left, I called Patricia Vance. "She's escalating," I told her. "Megan's trying to frame me for violating the restraining order. That's a felony. If we can prove she's behind those emails, we can have her arrested. How do we prove it?" "Leave that to me. I know some people." That weekend, I stayed home and tried to process everything that had happened. In the space of 2 weeks, I'd gone from discovering my wife's affair to being accused of stalking and harassment. The woman I'd loved and trusted for 8 years was now my enemy, and she was playing the game better than I was. My phone rang Sunday evening. It was Patricia. "We got her," she said without preamble. "What do you mean?" "The spoofed emails. My computer expert traced them back to the IP address at Sherry Lindell's house, where your wife is staying. We have timestamps that show the emails were sent while your wife was logged into Sherry's computer." So she really did try to frame me. Not just try, she succeeded in getting the police involved. That's filing a false police report, which is a felony. It's also perjury, since she swore in her restraining order application that you had been sending threatening messages. What happens now? Now we go on the offensive. I'm filing a motion to dismiss the restraining order based on fraudulent evidence. I'm also recommending that the district attorney press charges against your wife for filing false reports and perjury. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I might actually win this war. The hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. Megan showed up with a lawyer I didn't recognize, a young man in an expensive suit who looked like he specialized in making problems disappear for wealthy clients. She'd also brought Eric as a witness, presumably to corroborate her story about being threatened. What she hadn't brought was evidence to support her claims. Patricia methodically dismantled Megan's case piece by piece. She presented the server logs showing the emails had been spoofed. She played recordings that proved I hadn't made threatening phone calls. She showed GPS evidence that I hadn't been stalking or following Megan. Then she played the audio recordings of Megan and Eric planning their affair and discussing their divorce strategy. The judge's expression grew darker with each piece of evidence. When Patricia finished her presentation, he turned to Megan's lawyer. "Counselor, does your client have any response to these allegations of perjury?" Megan's lawyer whispered frantically with her for several minutes, then stood up. "Your Honor, my client would like to withdraw her application for a restraining order." "I'll bet she would," the judge said dryly. "But that ship has sailed. Mrs. Brooks, you've made serious allegations under oath that have now been proven false. I'm dismissing the restraining order and referring this matter to the district attorney for possible criminal prosecution." Megan's face went white. "Your Honor, Mrs. Brooks, I strongly advise you to remain silent. Anything you say right now could be used against you in criminal proceedings." As we left the courthouse, I felt a grim satisfaction. Megan had overplayed her hand, and now she was facing criminal charges on top of the divorce proceedings. But she wasn't done fighting. The final confrontation came 3 weeks later at the last stop. I'd been going there regularly, partly because I enjoyed Kat's company and partly because it was one of the few places where I felt normal. The regulars had heard my story and were supportive, treating me like someone who'd survived a natural disaster rather than a marriage. I was halfway through my second beer when Megan walked in. She looked terrible, thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. The criminal charges had been filed, and her new reality was starting to sink in. She could face up to 2 years in prison for perjury and filing false reports. She spotted me at the bar and walked over with the determined stride of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Stephen," she said, sliding onto the stool next to mine. "We need to talk." "No, we don't. In fact, I'm pretty sure talking to you violates the terms of your bail. I don't care anymore. I need you to know something." Kat appeared behind the bar, her expression wary. "Everything okay here, Stephen?" "It's fine," I said, though I wasn't sure it was. Megan turned to face me fully. "I know you hate me. I know you want to see me destroyed, but I need you to understand that I never meant for things to go this far." "Which things? The affair, the lies, the attempt to frame me for stalking?" "All of it. I was scared and desperate, and I made terrible decisions. But Stephen, I did love you. Maybe not the way you deserved, but I did love you." "No, you didn't. You loved the life I provided. You loved the security and the respectability and the comfortable house, but you never loved me." "That's not true." "Really? Name one thing about me that you actually loved, one thing that had nothing to do with what I could give you or do for you." She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. We both knew she couldn't. "I thought so," I said. "Stephen, please, I'm begging you. Drop the criminal charges. I'll give you an uncontested divorce. I won't ask for alimony. I'll disappear from your life completely. Just please don't let them send me to prison." "Why would I do that?" "Because somewhere inside you, there's still the man I married. The kind, forgiving man who always saw the best in people. That man gone when he found out his wife was screwing another man in cheap motels. You eliminated him, Megan. You and Eric." "Eric's gone," she said quietly. "He moved to another state, got a job at some private school that doesn't do background checks. He abandoned me the minute things got difficult. And you're surprised by that? He cheated on his wife with you. What made you think he'd be loyal to you?" "I was stupid. I know that now." "Yes, you were. But being stupid doesn't excuse what you did. It doesn't excuse the lies, the betrayal, the attempt to destroy my reputation. You made your choices, Megan. Now you get to live with the consequences." "So that's it? You're just going to watch me go to prison and feel nothing?" "I'm going to watch justice be served. There's a difference." She started crying then, but these weren't the manipulative tears she'd used before. These were the tears of someone who finally understood that actions have consequences. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything." I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry doesn't give me back the 8 years I wasted on you. Sorry doesn't erase the humiliation of knowing that half the town was laughing at me behind my back. What can I do? How can I make this right? You can't. That's what you never understood, Megan. Some things can't be fixed once they're broken. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. She sat in silence for several minutes, tears streaming down her face. Finally, she stood up. I hope someday you can find happiness, she said. I hope you can find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. I will, but it won't be you. She nodded and walked toward the door. Just before she reached it, she turned back. Stephen, for what it's worth, losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. No, I said. Betraying me was the biggest mistake of your life. Losing me was just the consequence. She left without another word. Kat refilled my beer without being asked. That was hard to watch. She made her choices. I know, but still. 6 months later, Megan pled guilty to perjury and filing false police reports. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison with the possibility of parole after 12 months. The divorce was finalized while she was incarcerated, with me keeping the house, the savings, and my dignity. I never saw her again after that night at the bar. Eric Dawes was fired from his new job when his background caught up with him. Last I heard, he was working at a gym in Florida, still running from the consequences of his choices. My mother passed away peacefully in her sleep 2 months after Megan's sentencing. Her last words to me were, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I still live in the same house, though I've redecorated extensively. I still work at the same job, though I got a promotion after my ordeal became known. Apparently my colleagues respected how I'd handled the situation. And I still go to the last stop occasionally, where Kat serves me beer and tells me I'm looking better every time she sees me. She's right. I am better. I'm stronger, wiser, and more careful about who I trust. I learned that love without loyalty is just an illusion, and that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is refuse to forgive the unforgivable. Megan was right about one thing. I did find someone who loves me the way I deserve to be loved. Her name is Sarah, and she's nothing like my ex-wife. She's honest, loyal, and kind. She knows my whole story and loves me not despite it, but because of how I handled it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret being so hard on Megan, if I think I should have been more forgiving. The answer is always the same. I regret trusting her in the first place, but I don't regret holding her accountable for her choices. Some people deserve second chances. Others deserve exactly what they get. Megan got exactly what she deserved. The end final character count. 47,892 characters. Stvorno. 2025, 11, 13, 12, 119.